Chapter 3. I had forgotten all about the application to the graduate school program until I was awakened in the middle of the night by the duty NCO shaking me, saying, "Wake up, sir. Some Army general from the Pentagon wants to talk to you." Why does an Army general in the Pentagon want to talk to a Marine Corps captain in Kuwait? In the middle of the night? This did not compute. I put on my shower shoes and PT gear, shuffled down to the duty NCO desk, and picked up the phone. The sergeant wandered off to look at the Geedunk machine for any new flavors of Doritos that might have materialized in the last few hours. "Captain Stern here, General." Even across 10,000 miles, the voice boomed. "Congratulations, Captain. You've been selected for the Foreign Independent Study Advanced Degree Program. I hope that was worth an 0300 hours wake-up." I was still trying to figure out what I had just achieved, but I gave the approved response since generals love to hear themselves called General. "Thank you, General. I am deeply honored." He continued booming into the phone. "I gotta tell you, son, you almost blew it, though. Your letter talked a lot about your big brain, but not so much about your lethality. But General Ventress went to bat for you because you'd been an 11 Bravo. No, wait, that's not what you Marines call infantry. But that's what broke it in your favor. You should send Vent a gallon of Jack Daniels." This monologue washed over me without a lot of comprehension. Why is a general yelling at me about Jack Daniels? That is when it dawned on me that I had been selected for the graduate program in Singapore. And apparently some Marine general on the board that made the selections had spoken up for me since I had been enlisted infantry, and that had made up for my inadequate letter. "I am grateful to you and General Ventress, and I look forward to starting grad school as soon as possible." More booming. "Hold your horses, son." I got the feeling I was talking to someone who had taken leadership and communication lessons from Foghorn Leghorn. "You need to report to DLI first to brush up on your Mandarin. Then you can head to school. We expect great things from you now. Hold the line for the adjutant who will give you some more gouge. Good luck and hoorah!" No, wait. You jarheads sound off differently. Semper Fi, Marine. I heard some clicking, then a modulated female voice came on the line.
"Lieutenant Commander de Grossier here, Captain."
Her name may have been pronounced with the accent on gross, but she sounded quite pleasant, even without the French accent someone with her name should have.
"Congratulations on your selection."
There was another pause, so I felt I needed to say something heavy on the honorifics, especially since her organization seemed capital J-style joint, with all these generals working directly for the Secretary of Defense. "Thank you, ma'am." I tossed in another affirmation. "I am greatly honored." Lieutenant Commander de Grossier's melodious voice came through again.
"I certainly imagine you would be. They only selected 4 officers this year, and you are the first Marine they have selected in the 3 years I have been the adjutant for the board. You are going to receive orders in the next day to check in here at the Pentagon, then to report immediately to language training at the Defense Language Institute in Washington, D.C. Once your language proficiency is confirmed as a 2/2/2, you will proceed to Singapore for enrollment in the Singapore Political Science University to major in China Studies. Any questions?"
I had a ton, not the least of which was, what if I can't pass the Defense Language Proficiency Test with 2s across the board? I majored in Mandarin and got A's, but never took the military test. And 2s meant learned fluency versus 3s, which were native fluency. Not that anyone would mistake me, the round-eye white devil, as my Chinese tutor called me the morning after I took him out, got him drunk, for helping me pass my junior finals, for a native Chinese. But learned fluency is still a high bar. Hell, translators need that level of proficiency. But instead, I said, No questions, ma'am.
Good. And congratulations again, Captain. I look forward to meeting you during your in-call with the Admiral here in the Pentagon.
She clicked off the phone, and I heard that weird buzzing that passed for a dial tone in the Kuwait phone system. So I would meet the mellifluous Lieutenant Commander DeGrossier after all, and at an in-call with the Admiral in the Pentagon? I hung up the phone and wondered what I was getting into. I realized the duty NCO was standing there waiting for me to get out of the way so he could have his chair of his desk back. Good news, sir? Yep, Sergeant. Looks like I'm a short timer. I'm out of here to D.C. as soon as the orders come in. Hell, sir, we are all two-digit midgets. We're rotating back next month. True, but I'm shorter than that. I'm so short I have to look up to look down. He grinned politely at the captain, trying to be funny. Then he came around to plop down on the chair I had vacated to play some game on his phone. I had designs to head back to my rack and ponder the future, but instead, I fell asleep instantly and was zonked until reveille. Lieutenant Commander DeGrossier was as good as her word. When I reported to the skiff for my shift the following day, the sentry at the hatch of the secure compartmented intelligence facility told me that the XO wanted to see me as soon as I showed up. I approached the head shed and grinned at the admin marine perched outside the XO's hatch. He stood up from his chair, knocked on the closed hatch, and announced, "Captain Stern, here to see you, sir." I did not need the Lance Corporal to interpret the response. The XO yelled, "Get in here, Skipper!" Lieutenant Colonel Hanratty was one of those old-school Marines, the old breed. To them, all Marine captains were Skipper, since we shared the name of our rank with, actual captains of the ship who were called Skipper. I knew that was how he saw himself, since he had a copy of a book with that title, signed by the author, sitting on his desk. In fact, he insisted his call sign was OB, for Old Breed, but the colonel would call him Mick. We would too, when he couldn't hear us. He spoke in Marine slang like a Brooklyn Goomba draftee in a World War II movie. He was probably 8 or so years older than me, but he was almost entirely gray, which you can tell when his hair had grown for a week or so after his last haircut. But he liked to be seen as the wizened old warrior, even though he had been one of those glorified prowler backseaters I learned to consult before my briefings. I am not too proud to say that I asked him for pointers now and again. The added benefit? He was happy to hear his words woven into the pre-mission brief. I did not even need to attribute them to him. But when I managed to quote him, I knew I would get a "good brief, shipwreck" out of him. Oh, shipwreck was the call sign the pilots gave me. The name they use on the radio to identify each other. Supposed to be something cool like killer or knife, maverick. I know you're asking yourself, how did Stern get the name Shipwreck? Well, gather around, boys and girls. On a deployment to Thailand, the ground officers in the squadron, the maintenance types, the intel officer, the chemical warfare officer, the logistics guy, and the doc went out one night to Phuket to eat and then sing karaoke. We ended up in a bar called, you guessed it, the Shipwreck. We had all had several beers with dinner, then drank steadily through the singing merriment. The doc, a female, what is the term? Tied one on. She got up on stage and slurred through one round of American Pie, and then insisted on singing it again. When she finally relinquished the mic, she staggered off to the bathroom. There were a couple of more songs, one of which was sung by me, I am saddened to report. I had just finished croaking out "Dancing Queen" when one of the waiters approached me holding his tray perpendicular to the ground, his hands at 11 and 1 o'clock. "Excuse me, sir. Your wife needs you." My wife? My wife was in California. What would a waiter in Thailand know about her? I was trying to unravel that puzzle in my brain, slowed by a half dozen Singhas, a Thai beer that starts off virtually undrinkable, that mellows into something merely offensive. Instead of waiting for me to figure it out, he just said, "Please, come." I threw all my anti-terrorism training aside and followed him into the corridor at the back of the place. He pushed open the door to the women's head, and there was Doc Stiles snoring peacefully with her hand in the squatting toilet. The snores confirmed that she was alive, so I wiped her hand with some of the towels perched on the little shelf. I picked her up in a fireman's carry and returned to the bar. I told our group, "Party's over. I need to get the doc back to the hotel. Pay the bill and I will repay whatever I owe." I went out to the street and flagged a tuk-tuk. That word is pronounced tuk, since that is what they do with all your money. At least, they would if you passed out in the back. It's a motorcycle with a two-wheel, two-seat carriage attached like a rickshaw. I dumped the doc into one of the seats and climbed into the other. "Grand Imperial Hotel." "Extra primo, good sir." The driver got us there and asked for about double the fare, so I quadrupled it and won his eternal respect and gratitude. Not bad for $4. I was carrying her into the lobby when a couple of the pilots from the squadron saw us. "What happened to Doggy?" Doggy was Lieutenant Stiles' call sign. She was extremely proud of that, although I could never figure out why. We were in the shipwreck, and she had a little too much. They grinned as I carried her in and took her up to her room. I took her room card out of her pocket, entered her room, and dumped her on the bed. After checking her pulse and finding it was still there, I moved the trash can close to the bed. I also put a glass of water on the table next to her. Being the gentleman, I did what I could for her. The next morning, the story had spread through the detachment staying at the hotel. And because Doggy Stiles already had the perfect call sign, I guess I was the one elected to be Shipwreck. The name stuck. As I walked into the XO's office, it seemed like a fine time for formality, so I came to the position of attention and reported, "Captain Stern, reporting as ordered." He started out, not quite at a yell, but loud. He had a sheath of papers in front of him. "At ease." "What the hell is this, Shipwreck?" "Secretary of Defense is recalling my intel officer to D.C. in the middle of a war?" "Did you send some kind of Dear Congressman letter to one of those bleeding hearts?" Even upside down, I could see the big stamp, official orders, with my name in the to line. The other thing I noticed was that the from line said Secretary of Defense, with two vias, the Secretary of the Navy and the Commandant of the Marine Corps. All the other orders I had ever gotten were from the Commandant himself to me, Captain Obscurity, from one God-forsaken Marine base to another for duty. I started to explain. "Sir, what is it, Shipwreck? Marine Corps chow not good enough? Combat not thrilling enough? You want to hang out with the Secretary of Defense and go to grad school?" Then I saw a few crinkles in the corner of his eyes and realized he was busting my bravos, as they say. Then he paused. All I can really say is congratulations and shake my head in wonder at how one of the dumbest officers in this command managed to get this kind of good deal. The dumbest officer line was kind of an oblique reference to the time he called me into his office to review the IQ scores of all the personnel in the unit, sorted from highest to lowest. He was at the top. This brainiac Rainman PFC in the metal fabrication shop was second, and I was third. The whole point of that exercise was so he could highlight my deficiency. In the XO's mind, since he was the most intelligent officer in the command, everyone else numbered among the dumbest. "Just lucky, I guess, sir. I applied on a lark months ago and got a call last night that I had been selected. I did not realize the orders would be here this quickly." "Well, they're here, so pack your trash. You fly out on the Freedom Bird at noon. See the old man at 10:30 for an outcall." He signed the orders and handed them to me. "Congratulations, Jack, I mean it. The Marine Corps must have a pretty high opinion of you." He lifted the papers to me, and as I took them, he said, Dismissed.